increasing focus, and building momentum. So you've got a worksheet, a handout here. We'll go through and kind of fill in the gaps on your worksheet. So we know what we just talked about, minimizing distractions. The greatest trap we face with accountability and productivity is what? The word I just said. The distractions. You have about probably more distractions in your day than you do intention on most days, even when you have a plan for your day. And that's just because the way the world works. Your phone rings, your kids need you, your husband needs you, your spouse needs you, something's always coming up. So the greatest trap we face is distractions. When I heard this in a country song recently, and I'm sure it's a famous quote from somebody, but days are what and years are what?
The days are short, but the years are long.
Yes.
No,
other way around. The days are long and the years are short. So what does that kind of resonate with you in terms of time?
Use it wisely.
Yeah. Use it wisely. Do something productive with it, right? We know that sometimes we have days where we're like, holy cow, it's already 4:00. And then you're like, okay, what did I accomplish today? And then we have days where we're like, oh my gosh, it's not even 12:00 yet, right? And that's just the difference between intention and focus. So speaking of focus, what is helping us stay focused? What are some of the things that we can do to help us stay focused? So talk to me about this little graphic here that's on your worksheet. I'm going to make it larger on here because it's kind of hard to see. Stephen Covey. You guys know who Stephen Covey is. He talks a lot about the center or circle of control and your circle of influence. There's actually 3 circles: control, concern, and influence. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about what those are.
So the control is the center is what we can actually control ourselves. Yes. And then who we influence, we also do have a bit of control. But outside of that, we can't focus on it too long because there's really nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Environmental stuff, war stuff is very sad.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we going to do about it, as one person?
Yep. So where do we normally get caught up the most?
On the outside.
The outside, which is the circle of concern. We only have on our worksheet this circle of influence and intention. Control and influence. But that outside circle is that circle of concern, and that's where we get mostly caught up. What are some of the things in your day-to-day, whether it be in your personal life or your real estate world, that are in that circle of concern?
Politics,
COVID, the environment, interest rates. Minutia.
Exactly.
Other people's stats and performance, right? Like, oh my gosh, look at that person killing it. I'm not living up to their standard, right? What else in the area of concern?
Details about the transaction that you can't do anything about.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Home inspections.
Yeah.
The results of the home inspections. Okay, so tightening that a little bit more, what about our circle of influence? What are some of the things that would fall in our circle of influence?
Clients' expectations.
Clients' expectations. Yep. What else?
I think your
Family and friends.
what Leslie was talking about, just setting that schedule, even if you have to adjust a little bit during the week, you still have influence over it.
Yep. I think your schedule, Tina's right, I think your schedule can fall under a couple categories in this one. It can probably overlap into all 3 categories. And we can talk more about that. We will talk more about that here in a second. What else is in your center of influence?
Your own attitude.
Yep. Attitude. How about the things that you guys get when you leave a closing? And then you get money in your account. Your checks, right? Your success, your financial reward for doing the job. You definitely have influence over that. Not necessarily control. We like to feel like we have control over that. That's why some people get into this business. But that's definitely one of them. All right, now tighten the scope a little bit more. What is in your control in your profession or personal life?
My time management.
Time management.
Yep.
Bonus. Huge one.
My mindset.
Mindset. Yep, your attitude, the way you look at things. What else?
Activities.
Your process, your activities, pretty much all your behavior is within your control, and how you respond to things is within your control. Your reaction to things. But this one, I would say, is probably the most frustrating one for us, because we want more things to fall into that center of control circle, but they don't. And we just have a hard time accepting that sometimes. The things that we mentioned on the outside loop, the interest rates, the way people respond to our repair request, the home inspection, all the things that are on the outside in the area of concern, we like to try to fit that into the inside center of control, and it doesn't work. And then we get really, really frustrated. So I think just knowing this, Stephen Covey really does a good job of expressing this. Dave Sansom has always said, when he was my broker in charge, and he still says it now, we have to focus to control what we can control and influence what we can influence. That's it. Nothing else matters. And if we could just master that each week and say every Sunday, give myself an hour and say, here's my schedule, and we'll talk about that. And what things do I have influence and control over, and which do I not have influence and control over? And those just all go away. I think we'd be much more effective. Okay, moving down to talking about habits. What do you think goes into these blanks? And I'll read you this little quote down here in a second, where it says, good habits and bad habits, blank now, blank delayed. So if you're willing to do what is easy, life will be hard. But if you are willing to do what is hard, life will be easy.
That's awesome.
It's like that graphic that we put up, I think we did the first week, easy to do and easy not to do,
Yeah.
from the book Slide Edge, Jeff Olson. What's easy to do is usually what in the beginning?
Nothing.
Yeah, like procrastinating, right? Focus on all those areas of concern
Right.
on the outside circle. Bad habits and good habits each have reward and consequence, right? So if we use reward and consequence as the two that go in those blanks, where it says good habits, what comes first? The consequence, because it's hard. So good habits, consequence now, reward delayed, reward later. Bad habits,
Party up.
so much fun and so much easier to do, right? So those are reward now and consequence delayed. Right. So what are some examples in real estate of a bad habit that's easy to start and do right now that will have real big pain and consequence later? Not showing.
Procrastinate, phone calls, don't do
Everything.
Yeah.
proactivity work.
Don't do any of your proactivity work or your productivity stuff that you know is that Ninja 9 on that poster right there. Don't do any of it. Easy to do right now. 3 weeks from now, oh boy, you're in trouble. And then good habits. What's one that you guys love? The Ninja 9. And which one of those of the Ninja 9 do you guys usually push off the most?
Phone calls.
The calls. They are so hard to do right now. But 10 seconds after you're on the phone, it's like, wow, that was a really good conversation. Every single time. Ashley Marsh had, calling her out because she's not here, so she can't even defend herself. Look at that. She had on her obstacles, not wanting, or people won't want to talk to her when she makes her calls. And then she had on her strategy to overcome, just do it. And then she wrote a note underneath and said, it actually worked. And just picking up the phone and dialing it and just calling somebody. I think it's hard for us to do because we get so self-absorbed. And bad habits are a lot more fun than good habits most of the time. But I think after a couple of weeks, the bad habit actually becomes something that, or the good habit actually becomes something that you enjoy. And it's not difficult. Yeah. And then you're like, oh gosh, I didn't make my calls today. I feel like I don't have pants on. Like, right? It becomes such a part of what you have to have that you feel off balance without it. So I think worth reading one more time. If you're willing to do what is easy, life will be hard. But if you are willing to do what is hard, life will be easy. So true. All right, moving down to your agenda and talking about doing the hard stuff and the easy stuff. What are the two parts to doing real estate that have to be planned for in the business? They're both 2-letter words.
In the business or on the
Yeah. Working in the business and working on the business. What are the two differences? What is working in the business? Yep. You face to face with a client or contractor or something relating to a contract. Yeah, front stage. What is working on the business?
Working your database, attending these classes,
Yep.
setting your goals, making plans.
Yep. All this stuff. So all your Ninja 9 stuff. That's pretty much your on the business. And as Alex said, and I think I put it in your handout, front stage. Yeah.
On the business, the calls, the Ninja 9?
Your calls. In the business, face to face.
Yeah.
On the business, all your back office stuff.
marketing.
Your
But I think
calls could definitely, you're right. Calls could definitely be in like face to face, voice to voice.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So jumping down to that next part on your second page there,
Yeah.
talking about Michael Hyatt's book, Free to Focus. I actually haven't read that book in a really long time. But he talks about 3 different kinds of stages. We've got a Shakespeare quote in there. All the world's a stage. All the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. If that is not the truest statement about real estate, I don't know what is. I mean, you guys wear a ton of hats through that transaction, which is why I find it so entertaining when somebody says, well, what does a realtor really do for me? What do I really need a realtor for? Holy smokes. But Michael Hyatt goes into focusing on 3 different stages of a professional in any business. You've got front stage, backstage, and off stage. Describe those to me.
Front stage is the proactivity, right? And working actually in the business.
Mhm.
Okay, the face-to-face.
Yep,
The backstage is all the, what I call the minutia,
yep.
right?
Your Ninja 9 stuff.
Ninja 9 stuff.
Yep,
And the offstage is off.
yeah. So what category do you guys fall in when you're having you time? Off stage. What category does your real estate reviews preparation for, not actually face to face on a real estate review, but the prep for a real estate review?
Backstage.
Backstage. And what about when you're actually giving the real estate review?
Front stage.
Front stage. So all 3 of these are equally important. The problem is we put them in our schedule backwards. And we really only like to be front stage. We really don't enjoy. I mean, realtors really only like when they're face-to-face or voice-to-voice with a client. It's funny because with the wine thing that I started doing, this woman posted on this Facebook page and she's like, I'm getting ready to do a tasting for a bunch of realtors. Does anybody have any advice? And I was like, holy moly, yes, I do. I was like,
How much time do you have?
yes. I'm like, first of all, realtors love to be face-to-face. So you're going to have to really set your stage for having those agents forget everything they know and think about wine, because they like to know, they like to be in control, and we like to talk. And then let them engage and share what they know and what they learn. And she was like, that was really good advice. I'm like, that's because I'm a real estate agent. Promise. But it's the same with anything. Most people in their profession, in sales role, not in anything, but really prefer to be front stage. And why?
It's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where you make your money, right? But they're also important. So you got to figure out, how do we do this? Now, when we're scheduling your week, creating your perfect week, which portion of these front stage, backstage, and off stage goes in first? Front stage?
Off stage.
Off stage.
John Brewer taught me that.
Oh,
Didn't
yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Didn't know that till 2018.
Why does it have to go in first?
Because if you don't do it,
Yeah. And who's the most important? You and the family, right? You and the most important people in your world. If I put only front stage and backstage in my schedule first, number one, there's no time for me or the other important people in my life because everything else has taken precedence. And number two, if I'm focused on mindset, skill set, and actions, I haven't worked on the mindset the rest doesn't matter. If I'm stressed out and I know I need a day off or a break and I'm going to meet Paul for a showing, he's going to be able to sense that from a mile away. And that's not going to be effective. So off stage goes in first, then backstage and front stage obviously is going to vary depending on your workflow and your schedule. All right, so creating that perfect week, taking back control of your time. That's the chapter in the 12-week year book where they talk about creating your perfect week. They really focus on the 12-week year book about time blocking. And that works for some people really, really well, but it doesn't work for everybody. But just because time blocking sounds like such an intimidating word doesn't mean you can't do a little bit of it. You know, if you block out 1 hour of time, like we were talking about with the timers and Tina was talking about 20 minutes, 20-minute segments, you can get a lot done in 20 minutes. Tina's right. So even if you just said, I'm not going to time block this week, but I am going to carve out this 20 minutes on this day for this task, that's time blocking. It's just a little bit different version. Saying no to multitasking. Okay, I saw a sign the other day. We were at this, what is it called? Eclectic Finds, like Whipple and 17, I think it is. Not Whipple, whatever road it is, where the Rite Aid used to be. Mathis Fair, yeah. And there was a sign in there and it said, multitasking, the art of messing up several things all at once. I was like, that is so true, right? I should have gotten it. I really should have. Maybe I'll go back and get it. That place is really overwhelming, by the way. Talk about like, and distracting. Holy moly. I walked in there and I always wanted to go in there every time I drive by. And I sent Tyler a picture and I was like, look where I am. And he's like, is that place out of business? Like he thought something happened and all the stuff got brought outside. I'm like, no, that's just the outside stuff. Okay? He's like, where are you? But it's true. So multitasking, the art of screwing up a bunch of things all at once. That's nothing truer than that. Yes to time blocking. We talked about that. Design your work, a schedule that defends from chaos will keep you from floating and kind of being whimsical. And you don't have to be perfect every single time on your schedule. When my family comes to town or I go on vacation, I have an itinerary for every day of AM, AF, which is afternoon, and PM. And there's something that we're going to do each time. We don't have to do it, but it prevents us from sitting around going, where should we go next? What should we do now? And you have like a whole day and a half where you're like, I don't know, I'm not in the mood for anything. And you can't think of anything to do. But if you have an idea or a plan, number one, you accomplish a lot more. And number two, it's a better experience. And you don't have to stick to it if you don't want to, but you've got it. Time blocking as follows. So we talked about that. We're going to get into the schedule here in a minute. Yourself first, your significant other second, and then working on and in your business. Those are probably tied. So once you've got that rolling, you're filling out your schedule. Now you've got this schedule. How do you actually start to get momentum? I was talking to another agent this morning and she said, I'm just having a really hard time staying interested and staying intrigued and everything. And I'm like, oh, we all go through those seasons, right? So how do you keep that momentum each week? What is S equals FI over T? Yes. Success is focused intensity over time. That will allow you to build momentum. The key is obviously doing it over time, not like one day. Right. It won't happen tomorrow. Sorry. Ditch this whole idea. But focus. Trying not to do everything all at once, because when you try to do everything at once, you don't really get anything done. Again, multitasking, the art of screwing up several things all at once. Developing focus. I looked up the word tunnel vision last night, and it said the art of, it's a defective sight in which objects cannot be properly seen unless they're in the center of the field of view. So I was like, man, if we could all adopt a little bit of defective vision when we're doing our schedule, that would be great. Intensity. How bad do you want it, and are you willing to do what it takes to get it? When I have to get serious about doing something, the easiest way for me to just finally start getting motivated to do it is to measure the cost and the risk. So what is this actually going to cost me if I make these 5 phone calls right now? It'll cost me time and probably a little bit of discomfort when I make the call. But if I don't do it, the risk is greater than the cost. And then I just do it. So that sometimes I think helps, measuring the cost of something. What's it going to cost me to do it? And what's the risk if I don't do it? That helps a lot. And then over time, and as we said, this is the most difficult part, because here we are, 12-week year express. We're on week, I think, 7. And
All 8 of us are here.
yeah, there's 8 of you here when I think 26 started with us. So I get it. It's just the way it is, and that's why we don't do it for 12 whole weeks. That's why we're doing it for 6 or 7, right? So that's the most important part, and the consistency over time is what has to happen in order for you to actually have that momentum built up. And each week it really does get a lot easier. And you will, as Kimberly said, you'll start to be like, okay, this is my habit, and now I'm out of habit. This doesn't feel good. So, a couple of final thoughts, and then I'll show you guys the calendar that's attached. Choices, obviously. The nice thing is that this whole concept falls in what circle in Stephen Covey's diagrams?
The one we have control over.
Yes, the one in the middle, the one you have control over. I think that I had mentioned this earlier, but I think you have control over your calendar and your schedule. I think you have influence over your calendar and your schedule. And I think we get caught up sometimes in our calendar and our schedule in that area of concern, which we just have to diminish. Really, the only 2 circles that are most important are the one we can influence and the one we can control. We talk all the time about being an invisible realtor or an accidental realtor and being on purpose. What's the difference? Yep. Preparation, schedule, staying on task, right? There's a quote that I've put up on the sales meeting slides a couple times, and it's the last one there on that bullet. Either you run the day or the day runs you. You get to choose. And it's a lot more rewarding when you have the control over the day and you're running the day rather than the day running you. So, if you go to your next page, there is a schedule. Look at that. When you did your goal setting, the first session or second session, you had time blocks or scheduled times of the week where you're going to do each of those tasks, the tactics that you use to identify what your goal is. It's up to you how you then put them in the calendar each week. But if I have, on Fridays from 12 to 3, I'm going to make calls to other agents that you guys did co-ops with to say, hey, thanks for the deal. Hope we can work with you again. And then Friday at 12 o'clock, somebody says, hey, I need your help with a contract. I have to figure out, okay, where does that 12 to 3 block then go? But if I don't, it just goes away and it falls off the calendar, and that's the end of that. Because I can easily say, well, helping Mary write a contract is more important than me calling this agent and saying, hey, thanks for doing a deal with Paul. That's a true statement, but they're both really important. So this starts at 5 a.m. I don't suggest that anyone really start their day at 5 a.m., but if you really want to, I knew Kimberly was going to say she does. I used to start my day at 5 a.m., but figure out your times. Figure out what you're comfortable doing in terms of each week. What time are you comfortable starting work and what time are you comfortable ending work? And then draw a line on that calendar to start. Block out the rest of the times. If it's 8 o'clock, everything above 8 o'clock gets blacked out. Doesn't even exist because that's, again, off stage, you time. And then same thing on the end. If 5 o'clock is your cutoff time, block out all the rest of the times. And then the first thing you put in this schedule is what? You. And then the second thing, the significant people in your life, kids, spouse, friends, parents, whatever. And then the third things that go in are your on the business and in the business. And I will just let you know, the easiest part of your day, any given day, to control is what part of the day? First thing when you wake up, the morning. So if you have a very, very important task that has to get done on any given day, do it in the morning. Because then the rest of the day, you've already accomplished something. And it helps, builds momentum. And that's it. Any other questions or thoughts or input on the perfect week?
I think it's also important that, as you already reiterated, that sometimes it changes, and maybe
Yes.
that Chris taught me that when I first started, because I was like all proud of my week, and He's like, Alex, you look kind of bummed. And I was like, well, I had this perfect week planned. And he like laughed. And this is Nate. He's the sweetest man alive. He was like, oh, Alex. He was like, even if you do a 60%, you're crushing it.
Yep.
And for me, somebody that's very like book oriented and all
Rule
that,
follower and
all that, to hear somebody like Nate
yeah.
tell me that a 60 is a good thing,
Yeah.
it like blew my mind.
It's so true.
So that's the other, don't get caught up in it too.
That's why people like Nate who do triathlons, well, he's retired now, but that's why it's so hard to do that, because how do you do 3 sports at the top of your performance level really well? It's really stinking hard. So think about all the things you guys have to do as agents. How do you do them all really well, all at the same time every single week? It's almost impossible. So that's why we have to shoot for somewhere between 60 and 85. 100% is great, but not reality, unfortunately. All right, if you want help with the perfect week, I will gladly help you. I actually did this exercise with Alyssa and Tony not too long ago. And we said, okay, in a perfect week on Mondays, what has to get done in the office for the agents? Tuesdays. And we literally detailed it out. And they felt like, they were like, wow, it's like so much easier to get done what we need to get done. And of course, now we did that like 2 months ago. And now we've slacked off of it a little bit. So now we got to get back on the horse and say, okay, now we got to go back to our perfect week and put it somewhere that we see it every single day. Because it's important. You could do it with any job, any task, any job, any work-life balance, anything. It's very, very effective. So for everybody who's feeling like, okay, we've been doing this for 5 or 6 weeks, you did your reflection questions, you're on the right path, I'm sure, toward hitting those goals, this would be your game changer. And you've got 7 weeks until Christmas. That's it. Crazy, crazy. All right, thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good afternoon.